All the places you've been, and the countries you've lived in, and yet only the company was willing to make you a home. A lot of recruits come from your background. Children of diplomats, international businessmen, brats, and the like. That and the military. Not all soldiers make good spies, of course, but they certainly make good patriots. And the company loves their ruthless patriots. Not you. Oh, yes, you've had enough brainwashing in childhood through seeing your father fight for his country, out and proud and in the open with his brand of patriotism. You had just enough empathy that couldn't be ironed out in boot camp. Your own thirst and ambition drove you into our arms instead. Granted, it was just what the doctor ordered, or rather, the politicians. They certainly wrung their hands over our particular brand of military ruthlessness over the years, and yes, carelessness with regards to proscribed human rights at times. So, there was you. A recruit underneath the policy of a diversity in, well, psychology if not gender. But we're not supposed to say that there's a connection. Women are, of course, not a monolith of motherly caretakers with an aversion to harsh measures. But still, you can't argue with statistics. Thing is, spycraft is an old craft. Maybe not so as a formal institution in this country, but you and I both know that we are of a cadre of one of the oldest professions in civilization. I mean, we probably are some form of offshoot from the oldest profession, but that's just speculation. The secrets our ancestors must have held, shared, hoarded, and sold over the millennia, huh? You must have stumbled upon a real good secret. But don't worry, it won't be a secret for long. Spycraft requires a level of mental hardness and ruthlessness. An iron will with a honed sense of purpose. You have lost your purpose, Juniper. I have not. I will not. I will find you.
Mr. President, it is with great pride that I introduce you to many of the men and women who serve with distinction and anonymity at the Central Intelligence Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
You know, I tried to bring a former director of your organization over here with me this morning, Vice President George Bush, but unfortunately I had him scheduled elsewhere. But I told him I would give him personal credit because I'm going to tell you a story that I think maybe is kind of appropriate to this occasion. And it's one of the few stories I can tell anymore because it's Irish and my name is Reagan, so therefore I'm not telling an ethnic joke when I tell this story.
And members of the committee, as I emphasized in my confirmation hearing, strengthening diversity and inclusion at CIA is among my highest priorities as director.
The story has to do, and I know this is dangerous, because anytime you go to a meeting of some people, a trade joke about their trade, they may have heard it before you did. But anyway, I'll try. It had to do with a gentleman who was stationed in a little town on an errand in Ireland, and the agency had to get a hold of him in an emergency situation, called in someone else. I said, now you go there and you contact him. His name is Murphy, and the recognition will be, you'll say, well, it is a fair day, but it'll be lovelier this evening. So he goes to the little town, goes into the pub, elbows up to the bar, and orders a drink, and just casually says to the bartender, say, how would I get in touch with Murphy? And the bartender says, well, if it's Murphy the farmer you want, he's 2 miles down the road and the farm on the left. If it's Murphy the shoemaker you want, he's on the second floor of the building across the street. And my name is Murphy. So he picked up his drink and he said, well, it's a fair day, but it'll be lovelier this evening Murphy, the Spaniel one.
After the attacks of 9/11, the CIA sought and was granted unprecedented authority to capture al-Qaeda suspects, whisk them off to secret sites, and interrogate them with harsh techniques, including waterboarding.
The act of Congress that I will shortly sign is one designed primarily to protect your lives and maintain the valuable work you do. It was passed overwhelmingly by the Congress, and I consider that a vote of confidence from the people of America for every one of you. I'm especially proud that our administration was able to get this bill through Congress. And believe me, you will never have a better friend or a more able advocate of yours.
Director Brennan, in 2014, the CIA conducted an unauthorized search of Senate files, including the emails of Senate staff investigating the CIA's use of torture.
You are on the front line of our defenses. We're the experts, the pros, the best there is. We value you for that. But I also hope that in confronting daily the dangers that we face and that face this nation, that you will not lose your idealism and your faith in your country.
Did some of them feel trapped? Yes. Did some of them feel great? Yes. And it changes over time, and it depends. So, but it wasn't as if they were asked, would you like to? And they could say yes or no. Once you sign that security oath, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, you're mummed.
It's true that we Americans sometimes stretch the limits of prudence in recognizing foreign dangers and responding to them. But it's also true that when we do open our eyes, we are a vigorous, powerful, and invincible people.
Right, but you could quit. No one was forcing you to stay in that job. I mean, you couldn't tell anybody what you did.
Right.
You could quit and just say, I'm not writing any reports anymore.
And I believe I'm correct in saying many only stayed 1 year. Most did 5 years.
It's not only the smart thing to do for an agency with a global mission, it's the right thing to do for an agency that represents and defends our diverse society. Simply put, we can't be effective and we're not being true to our nation's ideals if everyone looks like me, talks like me, and thinks like me.
I believe such a turning point is upon us.
The man who ran the interrogation program was Jose Rodriguez, a CIA spy in Latin America who rose to become head of the clandestine service, the CIA's dark side.
The forces of totalitarianism are reaching their exhaustion point, and even more important, this fact is beginning to dawn on the rest of the world.
When the agency's secret program was revealed, it was widely criticized. But the blunt-spoken, Puerto Rican-born Rodriguez is fighting back. He's written a book, a defense of the interrogations called Hard Measures.
Indeed, you're one of the principal reasons why the forces of freedom will triumph. For this, I thank you. I do this for myself. I do it for the many generations of Americans, present and future, who will enjoy the blessings of liberty because of your dedication, your sacrifice, and your love of country. God bless you.
Havana Syndrome, Episode 11, The Supervisor.
Good morning, Judy. Please, come sit. How are you settling in? I know moving to a new city always requires a little adjustment.
Oh, I've visited Mexico City before, back when my family lived, well, further south. It's just a little different planning to live here for a while, though. That's for sure.
You don't have to censor yourself in my office. Remember, we don't keep secrets from the company. This was when your father was stationed in Chile, correct?
Right. It wasn't for very long, just enough for us to travel around the hemisphere.
Well, I'm glad you're adjusting so quickly. How is your Spanish now?
Proficient. HQ wants me to refocus on Mandarin, though, for this station.
you'll more likely use Spanish and English, even with any Chinese contacts. Our colleagues on the other side are well prepared in language training. We're usually the ones playing catch-up. Besides, we have an analyst at this station for any translation needs.
I was wondering why I got this particular station, considering my language proficiencies.
Or lack thereof. Look, something you'll learn sooner rather than later, Judy. The United States doesn't have a whole lot of patriotic citizens who speak more than one language. Limits our pool into the company, right? After years of soldiers who can pass around a handful of Pashtun and the 9/11 effect fading, well, here we are, recruiting Latinos with a passing interest in Chinese business.
That sounds like we're at a bit of a disadvantage in this case. Sir.
I was told you were a bit of a contrarian.
Sorry, I didn't
Listen.
mean...
Our lack of multilingualism just means that we prioritize information that transcends borders. We don't have hordes of native Spanish Mandarin speakers lining up in front of Langley. Besides, English is the new lingua franca. We make do. Now, what do you have for me today?
I've been focused on raw materials and manufacturers based in Mexico City, specifically regarding lithium.
Anything new so far? You realize we've been following this since, well, way before you started at the company.
Just catching up on what we know, sir.
Well, keep doing your homework. I want you out in the field like yesterday. I have a few contacts to offload since Richard retired. They've been getting a little too cold for my liking. Let's start you with something easy. There's a conference this weekend. I'd like you to attend and warm up one of these contacts. Go to Suite 400 and ask Marge to get you the file on our asset at Bacanora. I'll call ahead. You have any questions for me, Judy?
No, sir.
A military brat through and through.
And proud of it, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, sir. No matter how much you rail against the system, it will crush you in its jaws. Why do you think I tried to change it, using lies and trickery? That worked really well, as you can see. You can't outsmart the Maw of Death, and unfortunately that's what we're dealing with here. A death cult. I don't know what made you think I'd be able to get us out of this. But there's something I wanted to let you know. Hopefully the lines are open enough again to get this through. Whether or not you actually meant to send me here, I don't blame you. I should have known. Hell, I did know that you were curious about all this. I was curious too. But at the end of the day, I chose to put myself here and to stay here. It was reckless, and yes, maybe you did seduce me a bit to be a little more curious. But in the end, I chose this. So whether or not you find me, just know that. You didn't force me to choose. I chose this.
Hola, buenas tardes. Estoy buscando por la Plaza Vieja.
Good. Pause here. Tilt your head up or put your sunglasses on your head. I can't quite see the upper buildings.
Directo y para la izquierda. Perfecto. Gracias, señora.
You have a tail over the rooftops. No sign of weapon, but be aware. Turn up the tourist. Remind me to never let you choose the songs again. Do you see the tail? Okay, begin evasion. Head west. You'll lose the tail, but you might pick up a new one. Our asset will just have to be patient.
Buenas tardes. Un cafecito, porfa.
Claro que sí. Un momentito.
You are sitting too close to the door. Don't get smart with me. You're exposed. Even if you removed your wig now, you can be seen from the street and you'll cause suspicion from the barista. Wrong move, Judy. What do you want to do then?
Gracias. Discúlpame, me encantó su collar. ¿Eres una hija de Oshun, no ve?
Sí, sí, sí. ¿Conoce la orilla?
Un poquito. Mi abuela hablaba tanto sobre prácticas espirituales desde su país.
Where is this Santeria talk going, Judy?
¿Eres cubana entonces?
Sí, sí. Es mi primera vez en Cuba y también soy la primera viajera a regresar de mi familia.
Wow, no me mentiste.
Claro que no. Pues Oshun es una orilla de belleza y todo, ¿sí? ¿Tienes aviso para una persona que quiere ser poquitito más belleza?
Ah, ok. Aviso de amor. Pero mi amor, ¿eres bella? ¿En serio? ¿No necesitas más?
Gracias, muchas gracias. Lamentablemente es que no me gusta mi pelo. Mira.
What are you doing? Don't remove your wig.
Ay, pobrecita. ¿Quién hizo esta tragedia?
Quise un nuevo color, pero ahora me viste una payasa.
No es tan terrible.
¿En serio?
Mira, te asisto. Pone tu pelo como así y por ahora más como punk. ¿No ves?
Gracias.
¿Mejor?
Sí, mejor, gracias.
Conozco una tienda buena cerca.
Oh, por favor, dime.
Mira, tengo una vecina que se llama Roberta.
All right, I'll admit, that was well played. Did you actually dye your hair purple just for this mission? Insane. All right, you can move on after this, but spill something on your shirt and change it. Don't tell me, you like that shirt? So, you dye your hair in case you need an excuse to remove your wig, but you won't drop coffee on your tacky X-Files shirt? Kill your darlings, Judy.
Ay, lo siento, qué torpe.
No te preocupes, no.
Tiene un baño, tengo otra camisa.
Adelante, a la derecha, chica, porfa.
Gracias. Disculpa.
Sorry, Judy. I'll buy you a new one off eBay or something. I do blame myself. I should have acted with more restraint. The risks involved in this job, though, they are omnipresent. When does the fight for the greater good subsume us and turn us down the path of destruction? What did you find, Junie? And what did you have to lose?
When we lose ourselves, or someone we love, we fall into the grieving pattern, the grieving ritual, if you will. Denial, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance.
Judy, good morning.
Apologies for the delay. Beltway traffic.
Of course, no worries. Please, let's get you seated and we can get started. As you can see, the director is not with us. He had a meeting at the Pentagon. Better him than me.
Mm-hmm. You always say that. What do you got against us, man?
Nothing, of course. I love you boys. Just not the brats.
Fair enough.
We're here to talk station reinstatement for Judy, gentlemen. Not interagency conflict.
Yes, we all know this is a formality. Judy, considering your health, we were hoping to keep you closer to home for the time being. Not far. You have a sister in Vancouver, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, as you know, we have an interest in the movements of foreign governments within our own border. Speaking of interagency cooperation, the FBI needs someone with broader hemisphere knowledge. We're sending you to Seattle to work with their field office on a select number of cases. We hope something bears out. That is, of course, if you feel you have sufficiently recovered.
I'd like to make something clear, for the record. I appreciate the company's forethought in keeping me closer to my blood relations while I refocus on my work. However, I would also appreciate not being treated like a porcelain doll. I'm ready to get back out into the field.
Your PHA and MHA were clear. We have no doubt in your capacity. However, you know as well as I do that this game is a mental one. We need to make sure you're focused, and if you can get extra emotional support...
Well, like you said, my mental health assessment was clear.
Very well. If that's all, I'll allow my colleagues here to brief you further on your new assignment. I'll be stationed here in Langley, so you'll be reporting directly to Sarah, our liaison in Seattle.
Nice to meet you, Judy.
Don't worry, she doesn't bite. If you don't provoke.
All right.
Yeah, she's almost as scary as the drill sergeant running surveillance at the farm. What?
That's enough.
Okay.
So, we have been monitoring the movements of the 3 major Chinese tech companies with offices in Seattle.
The ancient Greeks had this ritual, you see, thousands of years ago. The Eleusinian Mysteries. Homer wrote of it, or whoever wrote under the moniker of Homer wrote it. The ritual was a public one, but strangely, we still do not know what exactly this ritual pilgrimage entailed. We do know that it followed the myth of Demeter and her search for Persephone, or Kore, after she was abducted into the underworld by Hades after a deal with Zeus. For the goddess of the harvest so loved her only begotten daughter, she plagued the land with drought and famine. That rage was so potent, so total, so consuming, so relatable. Only once the gods were unable to receive their usual sacrifices by the starving humans did they step in to resolve the crisis. The messenger god, Hermes, was sent to negotiate with Hades for Persephone's return. Now, depending on which interpretation you take into account, Persephone was either tricked or accepted the compromise of staying in the underworld for part of the year by eating pomegranate seeds. Demeter rejoices, rages, and grieves every year, and the ancient Greeks were told to conduct the same rituals every year to ensure the return of the harvest and the return of Persephone, the benefactor of life. We actually do not know what they saw, or what the initiates experienced in the Eleusinian Mysteries. Only that it was supposedly so powerful that afterwards, the initiates were known to be no longer afraid of death. What a feat. What a loss that we ourselves do not know such confidence in our modern times.
Is that where your defiance comes from, Juniper? From that loss? Are you stuck in anger? I always wondered if you still felt guilty for being in Cuba when your grandfather passed away. Some misplaced sense of responsibility because you were the first to return since the revolution. I'll be honest, I have no similar sense of filial piety. But perhaps there was some other kind of loss long ago, too. You always had that anger simmering under the surface. I recognized it instantly. I told you about my resentment towards my father. Well, that particular grief made its way into acceptance long ago. I'll never forgive him, that's a whole other journey. But you still worship your father. What do you resent him for that makes your psyche so obstinate in accepting the origin of your grief?
Sir, you have a call with the Seattle liaison?
Put her through.
Sarah, I have the supervisor on the secure line.
Sarah, how's the weather out that way?
Rainy. What do you think?
Oh, don't be like that. Did you know the DMV actually gets the most rain per year? Not most rainy days, mind you. You all get the prize out there. But DC actually gets more rain per rainy day. So, cumulatively...
I'm calling about Judy. I think she's getting a little too close to her asset.
You and I are old hats with this, and Judy is especially good with our female assets. It's enviable, actually. So, What's really bothering you?
I have evidence that she is withholding information on the assets movements back to Guangzhou.
So she's a bit overprotective. We all have private things we share with our sources to strengthen the bond, you know that. Or have you been out of the field so long that you forgot how this relationship works?
Have you been reading her briefs?
I have.
Then you know there was a gap of nearly 3 months. Does that reflect your past experience with your officer?
She's your officer now, Sarah. I don't know what to tell you. You should be asking Judy these things.
You told me the girl was obstinate, not outright defiant.
She does her job, doesn't she? From what I've read in her briefs, she's given us extremely valuable information about the other side's plans for raw material extraction and even manufacture within our borders. What was the last raid you pulled off? Only a week after her last brief? Did it not go off without a hitch?
Yes, it did. But
Then what's the problem?
fine. Officially, there isn't one. But I won't take responsibility if Judy ever goes sour.
From your lips to the god's ears.
Fuck you.
Oh. Allison, please send me the Seattle contact information for Judy Carpenter.
She hasn't updated her phone yet, sir.
Seriously. That girl, I swear to God.
Would you like me to send her a notification that she needs to turn in her outdated one?
She likes you better. I'm sure she'll listen when you say it.
Of course, sir.
Those were the days, huh? When all I thought about you was that you were ambitious and prideful, rather than a complete traitor. I can't believe your line is still active. You know I went all the way up to Henriksen to attempt to disconnect it. I don't know who you've fallen in with, but they must have some kind of supernatural hold on your communications. I don't know whether to be concerned or impressed. In any case, it's been a few days since we last spoke, but there's been a development. I believe you have an important contact that either you or your father failed to disclose, even on your many, many polys. You may have never joined the military, but some things rub off when you grow up in that atmosphere. You were lucky to keep that contrarian streak. My father was less lenient. No matter. He's been dealt with. And before you get upset, no, he's alive. Just diverted in the same way he's attempted to divert me. He has not been dealt with in the way you apparently dealt with your assets' little Seattle problem. You should know me better than that. Unlike some, I never share my cleaning regimen. I have to say, I am surprised that he stayed off our radar for so long. He's old school, I'll give him that. Easier to fly under the radar. Perhaps the company has been too quick to modernize. A good disguise doesn't need much, does it? The easiest lies are the simplest. Like Seattle.
You're right. I was angry. I've been angry for months, for years. I thought I could channel it like my dad did, by catching the bad guys, bringing them to justice, averting catastrophe and grief for the rest of the people around me. But none of that is real. It was an illusion the entire time. Who am I actually saving in this power struggle between superpowers? You and I? We're both products of a world built on illusions. Illusions so real that they blind us, too. The problem was I had hoped you would understand. That you would help me break down the illusion, that you and I could touch something real. Why'd you do it then? What happened? Why didn't you meet me halfway after all that I've done to accommodate you, help you, keep you safe? I guess I shouldn't have expected otherwise. You had to look out for yourself. You've always told me that you're a sinking ship. Foolish me. I thought it was another bit in a world where if you don't commit to the bit, you're sunk. Well, I suppose this is as low as it gets. Thanks for that. Christ, I hoped you cared. Maybe that's what all of this is, a last-ditch effort that you'll hear me, that you'll care. But it's like talking to the dead. You can't.
Möchtest du was trinken?
Ein Pils bitte.
Suchen Sie einen Freund?
Maybe I am. Are you?
Sie don't often let Americans in here.
Probably got lucky.
You speak German too. And you are more polite than your compatriots. That helps.
Maybe. But kindness and communication works everywhere, doesn't it? Not just a club like this.
I think that's a trick then. Berghain is simply a reflection of the world.
Could be. I'm actually waiting for a friend.
I can wait with you.
You too, huh? Are we all waiting for the same friend?
No. Well, not exactly.
Your friend isn't coming.
I'm sorry?
Nothing personal.
And who exactly are the two of you?
Beruhige dich. I'm simply a friend of a friend who wants you to enjoy your time at Berghain. Alone. Unharmed.
Could have just rejected my RSVP. Now answer my question. My friend knows I'm no stranger to violence.
There's that American bravado. I was certain it was lurking in there somewhere.
Stop digging. Drink your beer. Go have fun, Freund. Dance. Try some Molly. Better luck next time, yeah? Prost!
Prost.
Schau dir diese Frau an. Trinkt Bier wie ein Mann.
Barman, noch ein Pils.
I shouldn't have left you for so long. I admit it. You were right. We forget how much of a game has to have other players for it to transform into something interesting. The most dangerous game is the hunt for humans, after all. And this has certainly been interesting, Judy. But let's cut to the chase, if you'll pardon the pun. Your siblings are on the trail. They think they are on your trail, but aside from a few interceptions, they are well on their way to finding out what exactly you found in Cuba. That is, unless you managed to find it first. I doubt it. If you had actually found it, you wouldn't have been able to message them back at all, now would you? I was surprised that you brought your asset into this game, to be honest. I thought you were protective of your people. You should have listened to me. You can't trust anyone in this game. Well, I have a flight to catch, and hopefully the terminal has a winter coat I can purchase. I hear Vancouver's chilly this time of year.
So, who is it?
She doesn't look like a cop. Or a reporter. I think. Well, let's just ask her. Hi.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Can we help you?
I was hoping I could help you. My name is Xinyi. More Xinyi. I know your sister, and I'm afraid Juniper is in terrible danger.
The 12th and final episode of Havana Syndrome premieres Thursday, February 13th. You can join the cast and crew of Havana Syndrome in a live virtual listening party. Please head over to HavanaSyndromePodcast.com, where you can register and get special access to a mocktail and cocktail recipe for mojitos to celebrate. The Supervisor is played by Scott Welnosky. Juniper Menendez, a.k.a. Judy Carpenter, is played by Lisette Alvarez. The Cuban Barista is played by Gabi Rosario. The CIA Ops Officer is played by J.K. Robbins. Sarah, the CIA Handler, is played by Diana Kennedy. The Supervisor's Secretary, Allison, is played by Melissa Peltier. The Stranger at Berghain is played by Clover Gontscharov. The Second Stranger is played by Milo. Dimitri Menendez is played by Ralph Ruiz. Guadalupe Menendez is played by Adrian Arce. And introducing Xinyi, played by Loretta Chang. Havana Syndrome is written and produced by Lisette Alvarez. This is a Stormfire Productions podcast. Thank you for listening.